Welcome back to The World's Finest Assassin Gets Reincarnated in Another World as an Aristocrat. Yeah, this one I'm only viewing one episode this time because I want to do one more before basically it gets late. Because, well, I don't have time to watch episode 6 right now because it's almost 11 o'clock here. Okay, this is discussing the 5th episode of the series, which adapts from chapters 10 through 12, and it's a somewhat accurate recreation. They still don't have in the anime the scene where Lou goes to kill 5 prisoners in the basement. Yeah, that scene was completely cut out here. So this one basically proceeds like a normal day, where like one of the things I'm glad that they did keep in was basically, well, and I kind of thought this would be last week's episode because basically this happened just after Tartier basically came on board. But no, this happened right after, like, basically you have a few various things happening in this one where, let's see. Well, you have Louis summoned by, basically Tartier saying, the master wants to see you. This is, of course, just after he filled up these far stools, far stones. And he puts them in the medicine bag. He's for a doctor. Basically, he's able to reproduce a whole bunch of these. So Tartier asks to come to see his father, and his father asks him a little bit of information about Tartier. Now, Tartier, as far as I can tell, this conversation is pretty accurate, surprisingly. Yeah, because normally animes like this usually cut up bits of dialogue. Here, this is a bit of a shocker. They actually kept everything in, which I was actually quite surprised with that. Basically, that's like if she's like a spy, the whole thing about coincidence, stuff like that. But it's a pretty accurate interpretation, like very much original light novel dialogue. I'm very happy they kept this in. Now, in the case where they have it per se, they did make a slight change location when they did it, because I believe in the book he said he was in the study. Yes, that's where he said it was in the book. In the anime, it was in the training room, which apparently has some books there for some reason. I get probably the reason why the books are there, maybe some bonus info, but my only guess is the reason why the anime did it, just to acknowledge the fact that, yes, we do know that the scene took place in the study. We feel like moving to the training room because it felt a little more less conspicuous having it there than having the study. I mean, that's the only change they made to this scene was location. So, because of the fact Tartier could trust it, which means he'll have to kill her. It's like, and of course, Kane figures, he basically tells Lee he is prepared for one final test. An exercise. A training exercise where he has to fight him. And Lee accepts. So, we have a pretty accurate battle sequence. Now, the only thing they do cut out here is the fact that Lou actually got hit with some poison. Yeah, they actually hit with some poison in the book. Here, he doesn't get hit at all with poison. I think the only thing that Kane does to Lee is basically break I think he broke one of his legs, but he's able to heal no problem. Aside from the fact the thing about poison, he's basically poison at him, darts thrown at him, but of course, they do mention in the book that he's actually built up a tolerance for poison, where he's able to develop immunity to it, sort of in the way that all the rigorous training will go through. And then he wins. Now, as for taking place in the forest, that's actually somewhat accurate. They don't, from what I remember from the book, they don't exactly say where this fight took place, but the forest makes total sense. So, he wins, so he's able to take him on assignments. And from what I can tell after a series of assignments, because they don't go into detail exactly what assignments that Lou goes on with his father, where basically, like, he kills him, like, one with basically a knife basically to the throat, like stick like a needle inside, drop them poison. Now, the drop them poison, I actually have seen the fiction before. You're probably thinking, where have I seen that before? You only live twice. Yep, as a matter of fact, it was supposed to happen to James Bond. And this happened to an assassin. This basically, the assassin used the very same exact thing. Except, here's the thing. the room in this one was actually bigger than the one in that one, because this one was like a small one-story house, and the assassin basically was on the, like, just under the roof where the boards are, and he basically just he basically tossed in this very thin, I think it might be piano wire, and there's some poison on it. Now, I think that in the movie it was green, the color of the poison. Excuse me. In the anime, this one's purple. And also, it was the woman who took it, and she was on her side when it went into her mouth. In the show, this corrupt noble, took it when he's lying face up. I can't sleep this way because, from what I read, this actually is pretty unhealthy to sleep this way. Some people may like sleeping this way. I'm not going to criticize some people's sleep, but I do not sleep face up at all whenever I sleep. I prefer sleeping on my side or basically on the belly, because from what I've read, that's actually a lot more healthier to sleep that way. But if people want to sleep on their back, I'm not going to stop them. Just for me, it's not healthy. I read this in a health book years ago. And another guy, they actually killed him quite uniquely by, he's like putting out his basically his candles, and one of them actually sets him on fire. Like, wow. And then after he completed these assignments, of course, they had this really elaborate party, which, from what I can tell, from the book, it's somewhat accurate per se. Yes, though I think that they trim him to fight a little bit. That happens is. So, Cain proclaims in front of possibly the clan from the other branches, because he represented all the other branches of this particular family, where Lewis proclaimed that the heir to the head of the family. Rao, who is one from the branch families, is not happy with this. Also, he's somewhat drunk, so he proceeds to challenge him to test his strength. Now, in the book, Lou was the one who accepted the fight. In the anime, Cain accepted the fight on his son's behalf. Which apparently Lou had no problem with that at all. He's able to swoop behind him, was like, that's it. Swoop behind him, put a knife through his throat. Of course, he causes his whole neck to bleed a little bit. He's like, I'm not done yet. So he proceeds to basically judo flip him and basically break his arm cleanly. Yes. Then, of course, afterwards, he said he was going to apologize to him for it, but he felt as he really needed him as a subordinate. So, he gives him a sword. Now, they do, in fact, cut the line out a bit for this one, where he doesn't like the fact he becomes his knight. He does become his knight, because he's more useful as using a sword than using a knife. Which, that is definitely true. And plus, also, they do bring up the fact that he did participate in a tournament with 4 other people, which they were stronger than he were. But the fact, because he's stronger than in the family, so he points to basically as a basic. He says, you become my subordinate, you become a lot more well protected, or at least basically a lot more rewarded. And he kind of likes it, and they cut the bit out where he decides to keep the sword, because here they just cut straight to the end of the episode where he is basically given. Now they do. Okay, now when he's basically told he's able to get his own, like, start an alias per se, they do cut the bit out of Cain explaining his other aliases. While Cain is his legal name, they actually cut the bit basically where he mentions 2 other aliases he's got, which is Tori Borta and Dwarf Gardener. Yes. Those are the other 2 aliases he's got. So, Lou, of course, is given his own identity as Ella Borg, the illegitimate son of a trading company who, according to the way the actual thing is presented here, is that he was born out of wedlock, where basically the guy cheated on his wife with a prostitute and basically had this kid. Now, I should point out, in the book, basically, I'm not sure they can do it in the end because I haven't watched episode 6 yet. In the book, he had to dye his hair black. Excuse me, for this cover. Which, yeah, that's all he had to do was basically maintain his identity, because the thing is, his silver hair is very noteworthy with his mother. So he had to dye his hair black in order to maintain a cover, which he does a lot throughout book one. Yeah, basically this has kind of been the way the halfway point of the book at this point, anyways. And he spends a lot of the rest of the book under his identity. Now, in case you're curious, though, is there at some point where he just says Lou by pure accident? No, surprisingly, he isn't. He's off to a city called Matalu, I think that's the name of the city, where Tarty is going with him. Yes, she's with him in the book, so don't worry. This actually is not an animated change. He actually goes with him, and she's with him throughout the rest of the book. Though something really interesting happens toward the end of the book, which I'm not going to get into here because that's probably going to happen in probably soon, per se. Yes. Yeah, his mother basically takes him off. Lou does mention to Tardy he does not. She does not go. She does not have to go with him, but she's had to volunteer anyways. And they go off, and of course she still refers him as Lord Lou, and he says no, not Lou, Illerg. And then she politely corrects herself as Illerg. For now, anyways, because it's just an alias. Of course, Tartier does know this is actually Lou Taladi. That's pretty much what it is. Now, if I've read, the actual name itself is Irish. Yes, the family name is an Irish name. Yeah, that's interesting that the fact the name is Irish. Yes, basically, like in the case of Cain himself, the name means tribe of gods from Irish mythology. Now, Lou himself, he so basically the name comes from a warrior god king. I'm like, okay. Yeah. But I still gotta admit, this anime is really good, and I'm loving the open sequence. The way it's presented for, well, Lou's previous name, which I'm gonna call him Alan Smith, where basically they're presenting him sort of like the Daniel Craig James Bond, where he's basically like hiding behind a pillar. It reminds me a little bit, basically, of the sequence they show him when he was in his previous life as an assassin. It reminds me a lot of Daniel Craig James Bond. I'm not sure if, in fact, this character was heavily inspired by Daniel Craig James Bond. I'm not sure, but that's what he reminds me of. Yeah, and by the way, in the manga, they actually changed the guy's appearance slightly. And you're thinking, how the heck they change his appearance? Well, in the anime, he's got a chin beard. In the manga, he's got a mustache. No, seriously, he's got a mustache. I should also point out, though, in the light novel, they don't specify if he's clean shaven or not. Basically, just describe him as an old man. Yes. Which, out of all people I've seen for these type of series, he is by far the oldest one I've ever seen get reincarnated, because in Mashuka Tenshin, the guy was basically in his early 30s. This guy looks like he's presumably in his early 60s, I'd say. Yes, they don't specify exactly how old he is, but I would say, based upon his appearance and the fact he's in good shape, I'd say probably early to mid-60s. Yeah, so he's by far one of the oldest protagonists I have ever seen for these type of franchises. He's basically isekai / reincarnation style anime. Because normally these people are usually teenagers in their 20s, in the case of Mashuka Tenshin, their 30s. This guy, yeah, he was actually quite old. He's also the first one to be an actual, killer. Because generally put, a lot of the other ones are not generally killers. Yeah. So, not much to say about this one episode. It's good. Definitely good. And high praise to the anime for keeping a lot of the stuff from the 3 chapters they did for this episode. Yes. So, that's it for this particular review. Now, tomorrow I will be doing more of this series. Because, as of right now, because again, episode 5, I have exactly 4 episodes left to go. So, I am presuming able to be able to finish this anime up tomorrow and move on to something else. I know I do know I've looked up online. There is a new episode airing tomorrow, so I will presumably be able to watch the episode tomorrow. Okay, thanks for the video. Bye.